In the world of professional golf, dominance isn't declared, it's earned hole by hole, round by round, season by season, and in 2025, that dominance had a name. Scottie Scheffler at Oakmont, a course that has chewed up the world's best and spit them out with a crooked scorecard. Scheffler didn't just survive, he set the pace. The U.S. Open wasn't a mystery heading into Thursday, it was a coronation waiting to happen, and the minds of analysts, fans, and even a few contenders, Scheffler wasn't just the favorite, he was the measuring stick. Because at Oakmont, where greens roll like glass in bunkers, swallow entire weekends, only a player with composure and cold blood could walk tall. That's who. Scottie was not just better, but built for this. Every course has its champions, but some courses belong to them. Oakmont belonged to Scottie. He'd been here before. He'd felt the wind cut through the narrow. He'd fairways, the pins tucked on ledges, the pressure of legacy, and he'd handled all of it like he always does, with machine-like rhythm and ruthless precision. His walk wasn't cocky, but it didn't need to be. He had nothing to prove. That was the problem for everyone else. You don't fight the wind at Oakmont, you don't fight the greens, you fight the man, who seems immune to both, and that man was already warming up on the range with that familiar calm, not chasing history but expecting it. If you looked around early on Thursday, the whispers weren't about who might win, they were about how much Scottie would win by, but the golf gods never hand out trophies based on prep. That's what makes the U.S. Open more than a tournament, it's a reckoning, and on this particular weekend, what began as another flair showcase would soon become something else. Entirely not because Scottie stumbled, but because no one counted on someone far outside. The spotlight didn't flinch for a while. It was his world, his turf. His title to lose, until a different name started moving up the board, one most people hadn't even circled, not yet, but soon every leaderboard has names that turn heads. Then there are the names that barely register at all. JJ. Spaun was the latter. While cameras locked on Scottie and headlines prepped for a familiar finish, Spaun slipped into Oakmont under a fog of irrelevance. No press conference, no spotlight, no feature segment on the broadcast schedule. When fans flipped through Thursday's tee sheet, his name blended in like background noise. Just another qualifier, just another hopeful in a sport where pedigree often predicts performance. No one was pointing at Spaun, and that's exactly where the story began. Where no one was looking, he wasn't there to make noise. He was there to breathe, swing, and maybe find a rhythm according to his interview with people. Spaun entered the tournament with no expectations, calling the whole moment surreal. That's not the voice of a man who's chasing glory, but it's the voice of someone grateful to even stand on the stage. But that mindset wasn't weakness, it was armor. While others felt the weight of pressure and prediction, Spaun carried nothing but his club's no noise to silence. No reputation to defend, no ghosts to battle. He played like a man who'd been told he wouldn't win and believed he had nothing to lose. And in a week where even the turf was tense, that kind of calm became lethal. Two players, one chasing a chapter in golf history, the other chasing around without regret. Scheffler came into Oakmont with a legacy to expand. Spaun came to test whether he even belonged in the conversation. That contrast didn't just define the narrative, it drove it. One man's presence was expected, the other's wasn't even mentioned, but by Friday afternoon that silence began to crack. Spaun's scorecard didn't shout, it whispered. And in the noise of expectation, whispers can travel farther than roars. Golf rarely hands out spotlights to the quiet ones, but when they show up, the shift doesn't come with fanfare. Comes with a flicker, something you almost miss until you can't. It wasn't supposed to be a stormy weekend, but Oakmont doesn't take requests. By Friday, the sky broke open and dumped chaos across the fairways. Torrential rain, relentless delays, greens that felt more like sponges than surfaces. What had started as a controlled march toward inevitability. It became a test of survival. Tournaments like this don't shift on the scoreboard. They shift in the atmosphere. Players waited, then warmed up again, then waited some more. The rain delayed, the pressure multiplied, and suddenly the course that belonged to Scottie Scheffler started slipping out from under him, one slick shot at a time. Scheffler didn't collapse, but for a man who made perfection look ordinary, even small. Cracks feel seismic, a bogey here, a misread there. Nothing wild, just moments. Human ones, CBS. Sports called it a rare show of friction from a player usually made of steel. He wasn't unraveling, but he wasn't locking in either, and in golf, momentum doesn't need an explosion to shift, as just a quiet slide as Scheffler settled for pars. He'd usually birdie something unexpected began brewing elsewhere on the leaderboard. The forecast didn't just shift over Oakmont, it shifted over the tournament. Because while some players tightened and others tried to weather the mess, J.J. Spaun steadied, no drama, no visible tension. Just one bogey-free hole after another, a 66 that felt less like survival and more like strategy. The Guardian called it AE. Masterclass in control under pressure golf. Calm called it cleaner than anyone thought possible. Suddenly his name wasn't buried on the scroll, it was being circled. Highlighted, spoken quietly at first, but with growing certainty. One fan asked, "Who is this guy?" Coaches and analysts were all ready. Scrambling for tape, that's how it starts. Not with cheers, but with curiosity when an underdog posts a number no one thought possible in conditions. No one wanted the story shifts, not because someone fell apart, but because someone else held together. The skies opened, the course turned brutal, and that's when Spaun got surgical. Some Sundays feel like finales before the first. Tee shot is even struck. This was one of them. Final round, Scheffler and Spaun paired side by side. The calm tightened against the rising question mark from the moment they stepped onto the first tee. The crowd already knew who the star was. Scottie's name was the one scribbled on flags, printed on shirts, embedded in expectations. He had the pedigree, the posture, the poise. This was supposed to be the closing act of another chapter in his legacy, but momentum doesn't follow scripts, it follows tension, and by the back nine, eyes that once tracked Scheffler's every step began to drift sideways slowly, then permanently. The difference wasn't in volume. It was in silence on the 18th green, with a playoff looming and the leaderboard pulsing with suspense. J.J. Spaun faced a 64 feet uphill breaker, the kind of putt you try to lag, not make, the kind of putt that ends most dreams, not fulfills them. CBS called it miraculous, the Guardian said. It was impossible until it wasn't. Spaun didn't flinch, no hesitation, no practice stroke. Just a pure roll with perfect touch. As the ball tracked the ridge, the crowd rose part disbelief, and when it dropped, the sound that followed wasn't a roar. It was a rupture, a shot that didn't just win a tournament. It rewrote it. Scheffler didn't crumble, he'd played steady, composed, good enough to win any normal week, but this wasn't normal. Not anymore. ESPN said his expression was measured, but it couldn't hide the sting. He hadn't lost the Open, he'd been overtaken. And in golf, that hits harder. You don't see moments like that often, and not in majors. Not with names like Scheffler chasing, but every era needs a moment, a turning point, a swing so unlikely it feels inevitable the second it happens. Spaun's putt wasn't just a win, it was a message to the fans, to the field, to the future. Golf's hierarchy had been shaken. And it only took one stroke. Golf changes slowly, until it doesn't. By the time the sun set on Oakmont, the shock had settled into reality. J. Spaun was the U.S. Open champion, not a fluke, not a fairy tale, a fact. Within hours, the ripple became a wave. CBS Sports reported his world ranking jump over 200 spots, rocketing from anonymity to contention in a single swing. Golf Digest didn't just call the win impressive, they called it career-thing. The game hadn't just witnessed a great finish, it had witnessed a shift, the kind that redraws maps, rewrites, resumes, and forces everyone to rethink the road ahead. You could feel it in the language. The tone shifted overnight on Friday. Spaun was a surprise. By Monday, he was a headliners Open champion. Wasn't paired with qualifiers like unexpected or underdog. It stood alone, heavy, and earned ESPN lead with his ranking leap. Golf Com posted a breakdown of his swing tempo and mindset, not as a curiosity but as a blueprint. The media stopped asking how it happened and started asking what comes next when people circled back to his pre-tournament quote about the moment feeling surreal. It wasn't to question the win, it was to underline how fast things had changed, and what changed most was the course itself. Oakmont was supposed to be a Scottie Scheffler's territory. It's where the coronation was set, where the number one would cement his run. Instead, it became Spaun's launchpad, a place not of defense, but of arrival in the years to come. Every contender who tees it up at Oakmont will walk in Spaun's footsteps, not chasing a ghost, but tracing a blueprint. Some victories vanish by Monday morning, Buried by headlines, forgotten by Friday.